o'clock. Hey, please join us this month for the Pledge of Allegiance this month. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Before we get into tonight's meeting, I want to take a moment to offer an apology for the atmosphere of last month's meeting. The atmosphere, I believe, fell short of our values, and it was not welcoming, did not create the space that we need to collaborate and have honest discussion, including healthy disagreement, and the good work that this often requires of the matters that we're involved in. Every voice in this room matters, and I regret the tone of the meeting that may have made some people feel otherwise. I believe that we are united and have a shared and important goal to continue building the best library system in the state of Missouri. This mission deserves a space where every perspective is heard and respected. We are committed to ensuring our future meetings reflect that standard, and I thank each of you for your collective dedication to this work. All right, let's go ahead and start with our consent agenda this evening. I would hear a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Thank you, Trustee Roberts. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Trustee Garrity?
Aye.
Trustee Hernandez-DeCarl?
Aye.
Trustee Roberts?
Aye.
Trustee Russell?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. All right, we will now begin our public comment section of tonight's meeting. We have received those in the order that they were submitted in, and Will is going to help us make sure we're staying on time with our sections. So I'll call you up in the order that we received those and then let you know who's the second speaker if you'd like to be prepared. If you have any handouts that you'd like to provide to the board, you're welcome to do that at this time. All right, if not, our first speaker up this evening is Gretchen Garrity. Our second speaker is Dave Rice.
So 3 years ago, the community became aware that age-inappropriate and sexually explicit books were being shelved in the library's children's sections. Appealing to the library board was ineffective. To their credit, the county commissioners began vetting candidates for the library board. This resulted in a turnover of the board during the last couple of years. 3 of the 5 current board members were all previously active in advocating to protect children from sexually explicit books. How well have you accomplished your goal? How many sexually explicit books have been restricted or relocated? What is the collection policy for minors? Does it reflect state and federal law? How has the staff been trained to review books? Do they review before they purchase? Or do they rely on organizations like the ALA and various book reviewers? I ask these questions because a book published in February of this year has been purchased and shelved in our library. The book is titled Sibylline. It is described 5 times in the online catalog as juvenile fiction. The publishers originally marketed this book for ages 14 to 17, but the outrage among reviewers was such that the book is now being marketed for age 17 and up. There is at least 1 copy in the Ozark Library's teen section that's for ages 12 to 17. The book contains the rape of a minor, explicit sex, a threesome, and adjacent necrophilia. Let me explain. The teen was described as not breathing and as dead. That he was found not to be dead pages later is little consolation to the non-consensual nature of the sex scene. At a January planning meeting, Will planned to begin writing a collection policy. His idea was to present at the February meeting a portion of collection policy, the introduction and scope. He promoted the idea of presenting to the board a collection policy in chunks on an ongoing basis. That did not happen. What happened in February was a mention of the collection policy being worked on, but no draft was presented. What did happen? The presentation of an Amazon wish list that citizens could access to buy books for the library. The thing is, AI can write a collection policy in seconds. It could be tweaked and polished, added to, or corrected in any manner as needed. I know because I did it. So the question must be asked, why is a collection policy taking a year to draft? Why are drafts going to be provided in chunks? Well, books like Sibylline are still being purchased by library staff and shelved where children have access. We have a different library board and a new executive director. And still, the sexually explicit books are being purchased with taxpayer funds, shelved in our library, and made available to minors. The book Sibylline has been checked out. Anyone's child may be reading it right now, and it's a shame that the library board is either unable or unwilling to do the job they are tasked with under Article 8 of the bylaws.
Thank you. The next speaker is David Rice, and after that is Reggie Mitchum.
Good evening, my name is David Rice. I filed 3 sunshine requests in 2026 to understand how this library operates. First, I requested all library budget documents. Each charged me $195, sent me 1 spreadsheet for the most information, excluded $63,000 state grant, and left the tabs for personnel, services, travel, and equipment completely empty. You filled categorically to fulfill this request. Second, I asked for all new teen and children's books with LGBT or occult subject headings purchased since Mr. Blindenberg was hired. You charged me $190 or $180 for 9 hours of filtering work. Of the 124 books you handed over, 120 matched the subject headings you claimed to filter for. That's a 97% match rate. Either you actually filtered and gave me exactly what I asked for, or you exported everything and billed me 9 hours anyway. When I visited the Sparta and Ozark branches, I found 19 books purchased under Mr. Will that should have been flagged. 14 matched your own filtering criteria, sitting on the shelf, absent from my records. You billed me $180 for filtering that you didn't complete. Your vendor offered to do the record search for free. You declined. Why would you turn down free, accurate work unless the point was to bill me? Let me summarize what I found in those 127 books. 35 promoted occult and witchcraft themes. 18 promoted LGBT romance and gender transition. 16 promoted social justice activism. And Christian faith, 0. Not one book promotes Christian living or faith as something worth having. This is Christian County. Our demographics are almost 70% Christian, yet our library stocks 35 occult titles and 0 Christian titles for teens over the last 6 months. That's not neutrality, that's the value system. It just isn't ours. And the consequences are not abstract. Sibylline by Melissa Dela Cruz, Good Morning America's Young Adult Book Club pick for February 2026 contains an explicit scene in which 2 characters sexually assault a character they believe to be dead. The text confirms the character is deceased over 10 times before the 2 survivors engage in graphic sexual acts with the body, including oral, vaginal, and anal sex. No content warnings, published specifically for readers aged 11 through 17, acquired by this library on Will's watch. I visited the Ozark branch yesterday. Sibylline was checked out. That's not a hypothetical. That's a child in Christian County reading necrophilia today, because this board still has no enforceable collection policy. When the author of an ED magazine piece wrote about this book and contacted her local libraries, they relocated it or removed it within hours. You've had months, documentation, and direct community input. You've done nothing. Mr. Blindenberg's failure to manage the collection policy and this board's failure to direct him demonstrates surrender of ground you are appointed to hold. Stop playing word games, stop hiding budgets, stop forming relationships with people you manage, stop being afraid of demonic books, do your jobs or resign. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Reggie Mitchum. After that, Leah Britt.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I come not in anger, even though I have before, please forgive me. Sometimes it's hard to keep from it. But as a pastor who cares deeply about families, children, and the moral framework that has guided communities for generations, from a Christian perspective, we believe that truth is not something we invent, but it's something that we receive. Scriptures teach that God created humanity intentionally, male and female. That his design carries meaning, purpose, and dignity. It also teaches that children are a sacred trust to be nurtured, protected, and guided in truth by their families. Public libraries have long been places of learning, imagination, and shared community values. But with that role also comes responsibility, especially when it comes to materials that are accessible to children. Many families in our community hold deep-rooted convictions about gender identity and morality. When books that promote ideas contrary to those convictions are placed in children's section or presented without content, it creates tension between the role of the family and the influence of public institutions. This is not about fear or exclusion of people. Christians are called to love all individuals with compassion and respect. Every person bears the image of God and deserves dignity. However, love also means being honest about what we believe is true and right, especially when it comes to shaping young minds. Parents, not institutions, have the primary responsibility to guide their children's moral and spiritual development. When materials that address complex and controversial topics like gender identity are made easily acceptable to children without parental guidance, it can undermine that responsibility. Many families are simply asking that public space honor their role and their values. So the question before us is not whether people can access information, they can, but whether certain materials should be actively placed where children can engage them without maturity or context needed to understand them. A reasonable approach is to ensure that content dealing with sensitive moral and identity issues is handled in a right way and respects parental authority and community standards. In closing, I urge you to remember that strong communities are built when families are supported and not sidelined.
Reggie? I'd just like to make a comment about what you said. You know, the library is making efforts to revise the collection development policy, but I want everyone to be aware that there's a lot that happens behind the scenes that you're not privy to. And something that has, you know, I think not allowed us to make as much progress as we'd like is that there's one will, and we are short 2 branch managers, and there's only so many hours in the day that he can get done. And when he is spending 50 hours on sunshine requests, that's a work week. And it's a lot more than that he has spent trying to fulfill the other obligations. And then there's also facilities problems. So this isn't by any means something that is not being taken seriously. There are a lot of discussions that are taking place. And you know, your feedback is being taken into account. I hope that in the next couple of months, we'll be able to get a policy that is going to show the community that your voices are being heard. But something that I am going to ask is for there to be grace on what's been going on, because again, there's a lot that's happening behind the scenes, and this isn't something that is not a top priority for the board.
I just want to keep the vision before your eyes.
Thank you.
One person here, the first library meeting I ever attended 3.5 years ago, was one of you in this room that was there, that God brought us together, that started this whole thing. The purpose was to save the children, save the families. Don't lose that vision. Without the vision, the Bible says people perish. Keep that before your eyes. There's a lot of young men like this guy, but I'm so proud of him. And a lot of it's because of you, Mom, and his father that raised him up. There's so many kids out there that can grow up like this to be great young men and women. They just need help. Amen.
Thank you. The next speaker is Juanita Bright. After that is Mike Miller.
Okay, so I'm talking about the book too, but I'm not gonna go through the nasty details because I think everybody's pretty much covered that. I am gonna tell you though, and it's unfortunate that it ended up on the shelves of the library. I am gonna tell you what people are saying about it, and these are parents, okay? According to the Daily Wire, the book is not going over well with previewing parents. Go figure, it's been earning mostly 1-star reviews on Amazon and Goodreads, with many readers noting that the themes are inappropriate for children, and mentioning that there are no warnings on the book. One reviewer said it was a piece of filth that should not be targeted toward preteen adolescents, while yet another said that it made her want to vomit, and it ended up ultimately in the trash. And again, unfortunately, it ended up in the library. Now, I know, this is what I know about you guys. I know that the collections policy is on the agenda tonight. I'm glad it's good, it's fine. And I know that you all want to put together a citizen responsive policy of book collection and curation. I believe that. And I think sometimes it's harder, sometimes it's easier to get together and fight for something that you can see clearly that it's not, than it is to put it into action and to figure out how to make everybody's vision work. I think that's where it's at. Above all, thank you all for hanging in there and putting in the time and effort to do this. I know it's hard to hear things too, whenever you're having to sit here. I want to encourage you tonight and also point out a few things to consider as you all move forward, okay? First of all, the book purchasing policy, which I think has been in place since 2023, when there was a much different board, honestly, needs addressed. I think you all know that. There needs to be a chain of accountability for every book purchased. One of the things that Will said, that he said it's very difficult to see what's in a book before it's purchased, and much like legislation in Washington, D.C., you shouldn't just, oh, we're gonna pass it and the book's in it. That doesn't make sense. When you're spending tax dollars, there has to be a way. Sometimes you have to aggressively seek it, but there has to be a way to figure out what's in it before you buy it, really. The old method of simply trusting either one employee or a small unaccountable group of employees to do the purchasing, I'm just going to say it hasn't worked out well. It has resulted in a weird, overly liberal microcosm of books, which would be better suited to anywhere else but Christian County, Missouri, which you guys know is very conservative and pretty much red county. And remember, no library can have every book. You're not expected to have every book. That's called curation. A curated collection should fit the library and the needs of the tax-paying citizens, whatever that is. At the same time that these new liberal books were flooding in, a library policy has been preventing and denying the purchase of beautiful older books. Anything over 6 months old, that's wrong, and that needs to go away. In Camden County, after the residents raised concerns about the books on their shelves, books were still selected by staff, but ultimately landed on the desk of the executive director, who's a good common sense man.
Time is up.
I got like 4 more lines. No? Okay, here's what I'm gonna say. There's gotta be a way to look at it before you buy it, and the buck has to stop at some point. It just does.
Thank you. The next speaker is Mike Miller, and after that, I will be.
Good evening, I'm Mike Miller from Nixa, and I was not able to attend the February library trustee meeting, but I did watch it online, so I appreciate you recording the meetings and have that available. Having attended trustee meetings for 2.5 years, I was encouraged by the actions and public comment that took place during the meeting. I really was. It was something that 2.5 years ago would not have been occurring. And as I said, years ago, when I first attended these meetings, it was like a fish in a fishbowl environment. Audience over here, trustees over here, and there was an invisible glass wall. No communication, nobody's looking at anybody, and it was just a very sterile environment. So, audience members cannot speak to the board, and the board couldn't speak to the audience. So it was, there was not much personal opinion expressed in the meetings. But during the February meeting, I was surprised by the interaction between the speakers and the trustees, even our director. One issue of hot contested communication was the internet hotspots, but there are other actions that were spoken about as well. Personal opinions were shared. Patrons with the need for the hotspots had opportunity to speak, and there was actually conversation going on. I thought it was a very refreshing scene, and sorry, Echo, I thought those were good things that I was seeing. There was compassion, and there was idea sharing. There was thoughtful and business-like discussion based on budget realities as well. You know, there are times when cuts in services must be made to balance a budget. And as Christian County Commissioners did recently, they decided to close the County Recycling Center to help balance their budget. Well, likewise, hotspots may need to be eliminated in order to balance our library budget. And some would disagree with that decision, of course. But if you listen to and heard the comments made by the trustees, it's the services with the lowest return that are often on the budget cutting list. And it's at times like this where leaders have to make the tough decisions, and they're not always popular with people. But that is what leaders do. They have to just make tough decisions, and they're not always going to be in love or loved by the audience when those decisions are made. But it is your duty to monitor our budget, keep it strong, and keep the library system solvent. So I just want to thank you for listening to feedback at these meetings. I want to thank you for asking for more information before you make decisions. That was going on at the last meeting. And then finally, I want to thank you for working together as a team and with the community, and for allowing different points of view to be heard.
Thank you. Next speaker is Natalie Keene. I believe you are this evening's last speaker.
And I agree with Mike. Just want to put that out there. I'm going to spare you all the details about that book again, because that's why I'm speaking again this evening. So I'll fast forward though. So after learning about this book, I immediately checked it up on the Christian County Library website, thinking that surely it wasn't here, but I was unfortunately wrong and found it was already sitting on the hold shelf at the Ozark Ranch and was marked for young adult fiction for kids ages 12 to 17 years old. And again, it is currently checked out, and I'm hoping it's not checked out to a child. That's a scary thought. But this is an unfortunate recent example to show us the urgency in fixing our collection development policy, something I know you guys are working on. And I'm not going to name names of the people in charge of deciding which books to purchase, but I am questioning whether the right people are ordering the books, and I would urge you guys to look at maybe shuffling people around. I'm not saying let anybody go, but maybe just shuffling people around would make all the difference. And just asking questions like who bought this and why, what list are they ordering off of, and this is just one book that we know of because I think it got spammed in everybody's email and sent to their phones that, hey, this book is here, you need to check the library. But how many more books like this have been purchased without us knowing? And as you all are reviewing the collection development policy, just keep in mind it's been a recurring issue, and the board made the decision to leave the American Library Association. Yet I'm concerned that maybe the staff are still ordering off of ALA lists, which push explicit material for minors. At least 6 of that author, Gayla Cruz's books, have been promoted by the ALA, so she would be an author that would be known by the ALA and promoted. And it's an impossibility for the library to purchase and house every single book in existence. That is impossible. And because of that, you all have the responsibility to curate the collection, which means that some books are purchased and then others are not. I've previously requested books for purchase that have been denied for me because the publishing date was supposedly too old. However, I'm not sure how in the world I'm supposed to use our library as a homeschool mom when it's being filled with modern ALA recommended sexually explicit trash. It just leaves me with not a lot of options but to stock my own library at home or have to borrow. Since it's apparently off the table though to label the explicit books, I just want to ask if we can start a conversation about labeling and curating a collection of clean reads.
Yes.
Clean meaning just free from subversive explicit content. I visited the Rogersville Public Library a year or two ago, and they're actually already doing that. They have a collection of books that have an easy to find label on the side that says clean read. Over the past 3 years, I've spoken to so many homeschool parents who have said that they're afraid to let their children browse through books in the library. And after finding yet another example of why they and myself are afraid, I don't blame anyone for feeling hesitant to return as patrons, and I want to change that. The wholesome older books that we want to find in the library are borrowed through interlibrary loan, while some of these explicit books are continuing to be purchased and shelved unlabeled for our kids to find. And I want our homeschool community to feel welcome again in our public library instead of apprehensive. So I'm very much looking forward to your vision for the new collection development policy. Thank you, guys.
I have a question. Did you by any chance fill out a request for reconsideration for this book?
I have not.
You read my mind. 4 people brought this book up, and Willa, have we received any request for reconsideration for this book?
Not to my knowledge, but as soon as we found out about it, I ordered it moved. So pretty much on day one, the wheels were already in motion. So yeah, by all means, regardless of whatever collection development policy ever comes out, there's always going to have to be room for active citizens to operate in good faith, let us know. And that particular book has been a great case study for us, and we've had a lot of good conversations about it.
Well, and I need to give you the benefit of the doubt that you actually do something with it. The last request for reconsideration I put in were with Renee Brummett, and every single book that I requested to be reconsidered just hit a brick wall. So, you know what? We need to start doing that again. Thank you, Mary.
Also will be over, I don't know if it'll be next month or the month after, because again, pieces, but we will be looking at a draft form for reconsideration forms, for a new version of the reconsideration form that's a little bit more scientific.
Wonderful. But in the meantime, why would it be appropriate for people to use the existing reconsideration form to bring books to our attention? Because I think.
Yeah, I mean, you can use the reconsideration form, or you can talk to someone at a service desk, and maybe they'll bring you to the reconsideration form, but really just all of the, basically all the customer service options that you have, we're here to help.
Like this, like talking like this. Is that one?
If you want to wait for that, yeah.
There you go.
I did harass like all of you guys already about it, but I thought I'd come speak too. But no, I will fill out a form though. Thank you.
Yeah, and I encourage you, like, as people find those books, and if they have problems, as Will said, reach out to the library staff or, fill out the form. I think it's important to utilize the services that we have right now, and then if those prove to be ineffective, then we can tweak whatever processes we have. But I think that would be really helpful. Really, thanks.
I just want to say that can you hear me? Is this on?
There's a button.
Those,
I did.
that's yours.
I have heard each and every one of you loud and clear, and I agree with you, everybody that has spoken. And I just want to say that I'm equally as disturbed about what is going on in the library, the books that are in here, the content, the new book that was purchased last week. It's actually shocking, and I can't believe it's happening. And I think we would all, I would welcome, conversation, I guess, during the collection portion would be the time for us to discuss that. And I agree with you 100% that something needs to be done immediately now, not later. Thank you.
All right, thank you everyone for your participation. That brings us right to old business, which is the collection development policy update. So I know that there has been continuing work underway with the collection development policy, drafting and revisions. I will yield you the floor if you so kind as to share the update that's in our packet tonight, what's being brought forward tonight from the speakers.
Yeah, sure. If I can, real quick, just thank everyone for their participation in our little Golden Books wish list drive there. And there is a demand for more classic books, and that's one way to do it, folks. I mean, we got a lot of really good ones there. Folk tales, Christian books, pretty much, I think like Little Red Caboose. I got Paul Bunyan. I got the Paul Bunyan one. So thank you so much for participating in that, and you can find new little Golden Books collections at each library. So that is one legitimate step, I believe. So for today, we'll
will get started. A lot of this stuff is really just setting the foundation for the next series of meetings. But I felt it relevant to begin with a quote from Founding Father, something that helps ground us as we set forth in this adventure together. These libraries have improved the general conversation of Americans and made the common tradesmen and farmers, of which is 42% of Christian County, as intelligent as most gentlemen from other countries, said Jim Franklin. The purpose and scope, this policy is intended to provide guidance, principles, and framework through which library staff develop and maintain the Christian County Library collection. The Christian County Library is currently being served by 4 branch locations, each with limited space to house physical materials. The library works to increase access through means such as digital resources and interlibrary loan. Furthermore, the library builds and provides access to a collection that addresses the informational, educational, cultural, and recreational needs for citizens of Christian County. It's going to be achieved through a variety of non-traditional formats and delivery mechanisms, including but not limited to digital platforms, library of things, outreach, and interlibrary loan. Some guiding principles outlined here, and I think that maybe in the future some of these maybe we pull out to like the top of the policy manual, but for now they're good where they are. It's important to build and galvanize a collection that addresses the foundational needs of Christian County citizens at each stage of life. Also, library science is built upon the provision of resources, services, and programs to specific communities, people. Like books, no two libraries should be the same because each community is unique and special in some way. Christian County Library believes in the right of local librarians to develop, organize, and oversee programs, resources, and collections for their respective communities, and as such, CCL believes in creating the best library for the citizens of Christian County. The library is committed to providing a safe and enriching collection for children and young adults while maintaining intellectual freedom and access to a diverse range of ideas and resources. Collections for children, young adults, and adults are historically separate for a reason. CCL endeavors to better understand, identify, and define the factors that delineate these collections. Got some definitions for you. Might as well know what, well, you guys know this.
I'm just gonna aim a little bit.
I'm so sorry.
I can't see.
Hey, come take mine.
Sure.
Well, I gotta zoom in for everyone else then if she's got that
I'll
problem.
let me take your copy.
Why is it?
Thank you, Will.
Okay, I'll just do like a quick, how about I do a quick, I'll just go back on for a minute. Are we gonna rush tonight or not, right? Because we're enjoying each other, so it's gonna come back up. You know,
Please
just-
don't read that again.
I'm not gonna read it again, so just let everyone have a quick look. Quick look, okay. 5.32.
It'll be on the packet on the website.
It will be there. Definition of collection development is the ongoing process of assessing materials for purchase, subscription, or licensing, and determining their inclusion or retention for a community's current informational, educational, cultural, recreational needs. This includes the maintenance of physical and digital formats of materials and electronic resources. Interlibrary loan, a lot of people, it's good to learn about this, and feel free to ask staff about this. This is a great resource for people. Interlibrary loan are materials that are borrowed from select libraries across the contiguous 48 states, maybe we'll just say the mainland states or something like that, for an individual at our library to use for a short-term loan. ILO expands our library resources while conserving space in our branches for more locally desired titles. Library of Things, something really, really unique here, something that I love finding here when I moved here some 6 months ago. The Christian County Library of Things is a collection of objects that are not typical library formats. These items are curated to improve the lives of patrons while saving the cost of purchasing them personally or having to use personal space to store them. We have cooking pans here, by the way. The Library of Things inspires and supports STEM learning, outdoor and indoor recreation, crafting, and other occupational pursuits. Fishing poles at Ozark. Oh, there. We've got some cornhole or clever. All fixes for barbecue. Community serve, I felt this is important to kind of set the foundation for who we are as a county. And so this is something to reference when we're developing a collection for the county on behalf of the county. From the census, I believe the latest estimated numbers, not from the 2020, but the most recent estimated numbers, and this will have to update from time to time. Understanding community service is necessary to provide the best set of resources possible for Christian County. The Christian County Library currently serves an estimated 96,045 residents as of July 1st, 2024, with 4 library branch locations along the Highway 14 corridor, reaching both east and west portions of the county. We also partner with community partner locations to maximize access to the public to drop off and or pick up materials. Got the Billings Library out there, got Double E's, a couple others. Very grateful to work with the City of Ozark. Statistical markers. 24.6% of citizens here are under 18, which exceeds national average, which is 21.5%. So we got about 3% more young people here than most places. Our household number is about average on the national, 2.63 people per home. Does show that we have families. 9 to 13% of people here live with disability, and I think that'll help guide us as we find more utilities for those who need greater accessibility, reading issues, that sort of thing. Then we have 2,098 employer establishments. I thought that was really interesting because there's 2 things at play here. We have the Christian County is a community that commutes averaging 25.5 minute drives to work. And the fact that there's 2,098 employer establishments in Christian County employing 16,831 workers. That's interesting because it shows that we have a lot of commuters, but we do have a lot of local businesses as well. But having that many commuters does make us think that we're going to want to increase like the audiobooks that we have on order, for people driving to work. And the county's poverty rate is 8%, according to them. Estimated 7% of people are veterans. I'll introduce you to one later. Population change from 2010 to 2020 was 42%, 42.63%, and Missouri was at 7.1%, and the national average was 9.75%. And so Christian County is in the top 3 fastest growing counties in the state. 42%, 42.25% of Christian County's population is rural. And that is the first proposed edition.
Thank you for the detail and your team's efforts. I know this has been a lot of revisions with board member contribution, your team, your staff, so appreciate the efforts into that. Open up the floor for discussion, questions for Will and others.
Yeah, I have a question. So we had a policy and bylaw subcommittee already formed, and I'm curious as to why we didn't use the subcommittee to work on the draft.
That's been my understanding. The draft has been in my purview for a while now. But that issue with the agenda is just trying to put it in the right place.
I just asked that going forward, that we utilize that subcommittee.
Sure.
Do you have any concerns keeping up with the data?
I think that as far as the data goes, as long as pretty much each edition we have is labeled with the date that we added in, so people will be able to sort of extrapolate. They'll see that this data was put in March 24th, 2026. And, yeah, and then maybe next year I'll just do a quick update.
Do you have an idea on which part you're working on next?
Well, so we have, like I mentioned before, we have the reconsideration form. I have a draft of that I think we should discuss because it's gonna need to be sort of drawn out as far as like what some policies, procedures that go with it would be. We're working on age appropriateness, section on that. We're also working on selection materials. Yeah, a lot of it is, we have draft work on a lot of it, like most of it, and a lot of it's gonna be just like how well polished is it, run into the lawyer, talk to him, and like whatever's ready to go. So I don't wanna like overpromise this section of that, but I do have, those are a couple that are in the works.
I think I would echo John's enthusiasm to continue to see progress, as you just alluded to, that we are absolutely doing. So I would challenge the board and that subcommittee to have the next iteration, the next piece of this. I think this is excellent framework to get us started, but I would ask that this be an agenda item. So if the subcommittee needs to meet to continue through those next pieces, as I said, I know Will has some of that started. So I ask that we prioritize scheduling that time, bring this to the agenda next month, and continue pushing this forward. I know it'll be
Are
months
we wanting to pull it completely into the subcommittee, because that might slow it up? I'm still here to work on it, right?
I mean, I would think so, because that's where we left the conversation off the last time.
But I'll still make like an appointment with the subcommittee to kind of.
Yes, well, I had a question about the subcommittee.
Sure.
Because, I was moved into the policy subcommittee, which I have no problem, contributing to that work. But John is the chair of not just the policy subcommittee, but also the budget subcommittee. And now that we are a complete board, I wonder if it makes sense for us to make some changes to who is in the policy subcommittee. I mean, that change would be Kristen.
Who is in the subcommittee right now?
Me.
Okay, you. Okay.
Yes, and I think John,
Yeah, so,
and John right now.
so by design, all the subcommittees have 2 board members,
Okay.
and they have Will, of course, and any staff member he wants to bring. And of course, we have legal counsel for us, so.
Sorry, I think you're the nosy one. I do think that is a potentially appropriate change. It is not on tonight's agenda, so I'm not here to push on that topic specifically, but would issue the same challenge. However, this board is an awesome team that's going to work together with Will and his progress, and that's the subcommittee meeting to review his progress and then unleash him to continue forward, or vice versa. I have no preference, but my urgent ask that we bring this to next month's agenda and continue forward progress. So I will defer to your all's expertise on how to achieve that goal.
Just got some activities on that. I can stop by.
Thank you. All right, are there any other questions or discussion on these first 3 pages of the revised policy?
I think it looks great. It's a great start. I mean, over the last couple of weeks, I've taken the time to look over the just collections policy. It's very intricate. A lot of the different parts are very interwoven, and it's hard for me. I was trying to conceptualize how to take into account the feedback that we received into putting and looking at the work that John and Diana did earlier, and trying to get it all to make sense, and for it to be able to be a document that we'll be able to take and then enforce. And so there's it's very complex, but it's a good challenge.
And Any other questions or discussion?
Would we like to make a motion to accept what is written?
I would welcome such motion. Potentially, I would hear a motion to approve this portion of the policy as written.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Garrity. So we have a motion to approve this portion of the policy as written.
Can I make a friendly amendment?
Please.
Can we detail what portion of the policy it is?
Yes, that is to the clerk.
So approve the purpose and scope, the guiding principles, the definitions and community served portions of the policy guidebook.
Of the question on the policy.
Yes.
All right, so, I know you're the maker of the motion, but I suppose you are accepting your friendly amendment to approve the purpose, scope, guiding principles, definitions,
And community
serve
served,
portions of the collection development policy as written.
yes,
Is that the clarified motion?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. And trustee Garrity is the second of the motion, you accept? I don't need to.
Yeah, it's her motion, so she doesn't have to.
Sounds good. All right, hearing that motion with a second as revised, is there discussion on this motion? Questions? All right, hearing none, I will move us to a roll call vote. Trustee Garrity?
Aye.
Trustee Hernandez de Caro?
Aye.
Trustee Roberts?
Aye.
Trustee Rizal?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, that brings us to the next item. Our agenda this evening is new business, our financial report. This is for the board's questions and acknowledgement of the receipt of these reports. Are there any trustee questions as we acknowledge the receipt of the unaudited February 2026 financial reports?
I just have a comment. Thank you, Mary, for adding the additional column information. It's very helpful.
Will speed scrolls, thank you.
Yeah. I was looking for the column, and I think I just missed it.
It's on
We
the
have to keep
profit and
going, it's on
loss.
the next one.
On the profit and loss.
I was almost there. There we go. See,
Yes.
percent remaining.
Thank you, Mary, appreciate that.
Right.
Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, there's no board action being taken, so.
Just, we acknowledge receipt, we don't need,
Acknowledge.
we don't need more.
Perfect. All right, so our next item on the agenda this evening under new business is subcommittee reports, specifically under the budget subcommittee updates, specifically the procurement policy. John, I will give you the floor to begin that discussion.
Right, so there were two things that we wanted to talk about, we did discuss. One of them is an urgent need, and Will be presenting that here in the next item. The other one is the fact that we're suffering from inflation in this country, and the minimums are set now at $3,000. We know we're gonna probably have to increase that. The discussion was whether it's a solid dollar amount, 5,000 increase, or we look at a percentage of the budget category. So we'll probably do some combination of that. I started to craft that. I have the revisions. I've copied all of you. We're not ready to vote on it tonight, Will. I need legal counsel to review it. We can vote on the other one though. So the draft is about there, and then we'll bring that next month to present to the board to vote on. But I think Heath has a more urgent need that we need to vote on tonight, so.
So staying on that topic of the procurement policy, as John mentioned, the next item on the agenda is the urgent need. So is there any questions? Thank you again to the budget subcommittee and the staff members for your work on this. I know Heath and his team have put a lot of work into how do we be successful as a library system with the realities that we're facing. So thank you all for the preparations and work to bring forward these needs and a way that we can work together through them. Any other questions on the policy that was drafted and heading from legal?
This is not the policy that was drafted, is it? That's heading
That's
to legal?
That's the
That's
existing
That's
policy.
the existing, okay, so you guys are still working the draft.
Yes.
Anything else, Will? On that?
No, just, I know that, we set the foundation, when I started, that there's a lot of challenges with our facilities. And so that's been very much at the forefront of our work here for the first 6 months or so. And anything that gives Heath the ability to go out and get the job done is very useful. I know some of the things he's running into includes people are charging us like a couple $100 just to come give us a quote now because they know that once they put out the quote that we have to put it out to bid. So that makes things problematic, and sometimes people leave without giving us a quote. And so we're looking to build bridges with the vendors and the people who help with facilities around here. And so I appreciate John coming out here.
Awesome, thank you so much. So no board action on that item. We'll move to the next item on the agenda under new business, which is the emergency procurement waiver being requested. So Will, if you wouldn't mind starting us off into that one.
Yeah, sure. So we had a plumber pretty much identify that we need to get a new water heater, we need to get another water heater purged, and that we should put a carbon filter into where we intake our water from the outside. And I have it worded here that, and if there is a motion, you pretty much just use the wording that I have here. That I request that the board vote to approve the suspension of procurement of requirement of comparative quotes for the urgent replacement of a water heater as well as the maintenance or replacement of a second water heater, installation of a carbon filter, and the estimated costs around $12,000.
And in discussion with the subcommittee, you did mention that this was still within budget, approved budget.
Yes, yeah. So this is not me asking for to approve the budget amount of $12,000 because that would be beyond budget. Now this is within stuff we've budgeted for this sort of thing happening. So really it's just Keith has 1 or 2 quotes, and I'm just asking if we can just let him get the job done because we just need to make sure that we have like good water.
Yeah, the only thing I would ask is that we get to see the quotes, if you could just copy us on them. We know what the challenge is here locally, that people don't want to bid and all that. But if we could just see the quotes and have those for the record, because we need to have that, the record.
Yeah. So you want me to bring the quote from this project to the next meeting or something like that? Or
Yeah,
just send it
maybe
to
put
you?
them in the packet, yeah, just add them to the packet.
Add it to the packet.
Does that imply we're not going to do these repairs until after our April
I
meeting?
think we're gonna vote tonight to do the repairs. This is just for documentation.
Okay, for historical context, would it be more prudent to send them another way or an email?
Yeah, email's fine.
Okay.
I don't care.
Yeah, sure. I'll just BCC it, send it to you guys.
Sorry, go ahead, Ms. Jones.
So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the suspension of the procurement requirement of 3 competitive quotes for urgent replacement of a water heater as well as the maintenance or replacement of a second water heater, installation of carbon filter, as it pertains to emergency needs that affects operations of the library.
Second.
We're writing it down, we're doing our due diligence to correctly capture the motions, even if it takes us a moment. So Thank you for having it well written. Thank you, Kelly, for the motion, and Trustee Barry for the second. Our secretary captured that language sufficiently. Could you please read it back to us, or?
I missed the last,
As it pertains to emergency needs and operations of the library, if I heard it correctly. Okay, got it. Thanks all. Any discussion or questions on the motion? Hearing none, I will move this to a roll call vote. Trustee Garrity?
Aye.
Trustee Hernandez-Carl? Trustee Roberts?
Aye.
Trustee Russell? Motion carries. All right, that brings us to the fourth item on our new business agenda, the strategic planning update, specifically the community engagement portal. Will, I would yield you the floor.
And thanks, I just wanted to sort of provide an update, if it spurs on any discussion, even better, but I did want to show why I was so excited to have this meeting today, because I think a lot of things are really starting to come together for us. And this project is something that's at the very center of the evolution of our culture here at the Christian County Library. Basically, hold on a second, gotta get bigger. There you go. Thank you, Brogan. So we're dedicated to creating more sort of on-ramps for people to get involved with us, to engage with us. And you can see, as an example, the Little Golden Books wish list being here under collections, and we hope to have much more of it where that came from. We are looking at making one single portal of community engagement that shows you all the different ways that you can volunteer, all the things that we're looking for donations, like trees, like native plants. We're trying to, put some stuff out at Clever and Sparta in particular. We have a lot of open land out there we want you to buy. UPS batteries, wish lists, we'll probably put out more ways to donate to the library of things. So if you have like nice things laying around, or if you want to pick something off of an Amazon list for that. RFPs, requests for proposal, somewhere to put like, this is work that we need to get done. And if you are a contractor or something, come back, bookmark this page, come back and check it out. We want links to like our closest community partners, the Friends of the Library, the Foundation. If you're interested in proposing a program, then this is also the way to go, and you click that, and then it'll take, it'll email all people who need to know about the program proposal, all 4 branches. Pretty much estate giving, all the other things. We're really excited about this, and I'm open for ideas of what should be on this. I want to thank communications team, Brogan, Dee, Mary, Keith, everybody who has thought about this, because this page here for me is the bedrock of like what comes next over the next couple of years.
How does this differ from anything? Does the Friends of the Library already do some of this?
So they're actually one of the customers I had in mind when creating this. So I was at a foundation meeting the other day, and they were talking about their giving goals, and they were trying to come up more with like what do we need. And part of me doing this is that I'm going to create a sort of self-serve platform for them to go shopping pretty much, where if they raise money at one of their fundraisers, then they could actually just hop on this and they could have some fun figuring out like what they want to do with that money. So yeah, they do a lot, foundation, mostly facility type things, long-term things. Friends help with a lot of programs. They're the outdoor summer series is a big one. They've helped with sort of in the past and other things, and pretty much there are other nonprofits that have expressed interest in doing fundraisers for us and stuff, and so when I get to go out to the community and talk to people and I find someone who wants to get involved, then I have this on my phone and I send them a link. It's also a way for me to get their number to bother them later, but I'm excited about this thing. So.
Looks great.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? Yes, so exciting. Robin, thank you.
If I wanted to donate something to the library today, whether that be money, estate, a thing for the Library of Things, how is that currently handled, and how will this new process change that?
That's a great question. I think it's mostly, I know, right? Putting this boss on the spot. Thanks, mostly, they would pretty much go to the people at the front desk, and part of what I want to do here is take the pressure off the front desk. The front desk, they carry us. They're the ones that you all know and love the most. So that it might be that way, or we really don't have a donations policy for some of this stuff, like the Library of Things, so we haven't opened that up, so that would be opened up for the first time. Things like for IT, it would just be custom for each person, like it would be someone probably emailing me and being like, I have this amount of money and I would like to do something with it when you have. And so very selfishly, I could just be like, well, and then just pull this up now. Someone reached out recently about the potential of doing a fundraiser at one of the local sort of venues, doing like I think it was like an imposter's ball or something like that. And so I was able to sort of come up with some ideas for that. So a lot of it, it's kind of murky, honestly, so that's why we're doing this.
Does he speak the truth?
So just to clarify, if I wanted to donate $100 today to the Christian County Library, there are limited avenues available right now to be able to do that.
Right, and there is a giving page on our website that is a little bit limited, as you found.
I was just gonna share, I did try to give, I tried to donate to the library a few years ago, and it was so difficult to figure out how in the world to get it done that I gave up.
Mm-hmm.
This is awesome.
Well, we believe that as much as y'all love us and you all think you're doing a great job, thanks for that. We believe that people want to know that like what they're getting for their money, and not just simply put money into a pot and I don't know what happens to it then, So we wanted to create this in a way that you know exactly what you're doing. I mean, I'm excited as a dad, like taking my director's hat off. I'm excited to know that, like, I can take my boys to like the Clever library now, and I can go grab that Paul Bunyan book that I bought for the little golden books or something, like just develop that directly, So again, just you guys are great active citizens, and we just want to tie into everyone.
This would be something great, like you were talking about, John, last month with the lady that was having a hard time paying for things. Rather than having tax dollars pay for it, how nice would it be to have folks that want to donate, and you could use some of that for the hotspots, for whatever.
I'm not going to take any possibility off the table. That's exactly why, another thing to create this too is that there are a lot of discussions about, property tax reform, and so I would like for our system to be at the front lines of finding alternative ways of funding things. So we don't have to be so reliant on things. That being said, please keep us funded. I need a little while to get there.
That's too bad to hear that there was challenges in the past. I know I have successfully donated in
including employer match to the library. My employer matches any donations that I'm able to give. So I know that is a possibility. It did take some steps, but it was possible. So I look forward to continued improvement and evolution of this. Again, thank you and your teams. I know it's
Just
a lot
to
of
be
planning and design, so
And just to be clear, it's not online yet, it's being developed, so just, sorry.
coming soon.
Just to clarify too, all of the branches have donation envelopes at the front desk that you can pick up and fill out, mail it in, hand it to them, they'll get it to the office so that it goes to the right people too. So that's probably the easiest way if you're in the branch and want to donate.
Good reminder, thank you, yes.
Thank you.
All right, very exciting, coming soon. All right, the fifth item of business under new business this evening is our secretary's report. Trustee Hernandez de Carl, I would yield you the floor if you'd be so kind on this topic.
All right, so I'm just gonna do this periodically. And today what I wanted to do is just have a discussion about motions and how they're done, just to go over a couple of best practices, so that we make sure we're able to capture everything in a timely manner, that we're all on the same page and understand what we're voting for. So if you ever have, if there's an item that you ever want to bring on up for discussion, you email myself or the president of the board, and we'll be able to add your item to the agenda. If you're going to make a motion, or you're planning to make a motion, it's a good idea that your topic be connected to the motion that you are going to be introducing. And if possible, you want to write the motion in advance. And when you write the motion, you want it to be specific, concise, actionable, and clear. A good rule of thumb is to have the 5 W's. It's really helpful. John's been doing this for some time, and Will did it today specifically with the emergency procurement policy waiver. It's helpful to do that. And of course, sometimes we just have to go on fly, like I did today to make the motion. But it's not as intimidating as it may look. And when you introduce a motion, once the president gives you the floor, it's important to make a case for what it is that you're gonna try to garner a decision to be made on by the board. And I think about like basketball, my rating only I've got to get close to the hoop or shoot. And so that's how we want to be able to handle this if possible. And then when you make your motion, you can say, I move that, and then speak slowly with what you're saying so that I can hear and write down what you're saying. Because it's actually harder to do that when you have all these eyeballs on you all the time. And then you wait for a second, and you wait for someone else on the team to second your motion, and then the chair, as Echo and I have been doing today, you can see we're coordinating a little bit more. She states the motion and make sure that I have everything that she's saying written down, and then we participate in a discussion. I think we've done a very good job of being honest and doing our best to reflect the opinions of the community members that we serve. So I would encourage everyone to continue to do that. And then, as you've seen, we vote. I did want to talk a little bit about abstaining, because it's something that has happened in the past. And typically this happens, abstaining basically means that you're not voting, you're not participating in the vote. And in fact, it doesn't get recorded in the minutes, and it doesn't get counted in the vote. It's almost like you weren't there for the vote. And some reasons that people will sometimes abstain is they have a lack of sufficient information. So you haven't been here for the entire discussion, and you feel that you're not adequately prepared at this point to make a vote, or you have an inability to form an opinion because you generally just can't, process what it is that's being discussed. And yeah, that's basically it.
Clarification, there has to be a second in order for there to be discussion.
Correct.
Yes.
And a correction, abstentions are recorded in the meeting. The reason they're recorded is because the reason the abstention is part of that vote. So say I had a conflict of interest and I can't vote because I would be partial would impact me personally, so abstentions should be recorded.
Okay, but it's not counted in the tally of yes versus
No, but your abstention's
Okay.
recorded, and the reason for your abstention is recorded as well, so.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Another to add is, I know that this is maybe why we've done it differently, is after the maker of the motion, then is excited to share more detail about the motion, and therefore maybe makes a motion and begins the discussion. So the maker of the motion, if we can continue through that process, be as succinct and clear as possible, let's give that second if it's appropriate and the board would like to move it to discussion. Let's reiterate it to each other, and then the maker of the motion will have the floor first to begin that discussion. So that is your reward for successfully making a motion. Is there anything else anyone else would like to add? Okay, that was it. That was very helpful. Thank you. All right, that brings us to item number 6 on our agenda this evening. The custodian of records. Will I yield you the floor to start this discussion?
So I just wanted to welcome Brogan in the back. Brogan Fields, he is let's give him a round of applause. Brogan is a Marine vet, and he has a lot of IT experience. He is also our, the full title, I'm probably gonna get it wrong, is Technology and Data Compliance Specialist. And so not only is he going to be helping us with the records stuff, but also things like cybersecurity policy and helping train people in the future. And so he's really dynamic, and I'm really happy to have him on board. We've got a good one.
Thank you so much, Brogan. So sorry that I missed your introduction last month. So thank you for being back here and all your efforts already to date. I know we threw you right into the deep end, and we appreciate you swimming so admirably thus far. So. All right. With no further business on the agenda, I will now call tonight's meeting adjourned. Thank you all for your time and participation.